And what does it mean a substitute? Like it says in Gemara, that the Beis Mikdash of Yerushalayim travels and it settles in one specific shul in those lords. And which shul is it? It's always the shul of whoever is the nasi of the generation. So the Rebbe says, in our generation is the shul of the Frierdiker Rebbe, which is the nasi of our generation, and that's 770.
Which he chose because of a wheelchair.
What?
Which he chose because he had a wheelchair.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's what we did yesterday, the other week. And I think we covered until 47. So now we're on 49, 47, 46, 47, now we're 48, 49. V'yesh lahosef, she'inyan zeh, merumaz, v'shmoi shel Beis Rabeinu ShebeBavel. One of the things that the Rebbe almost every opportunity does in his Sichas is to analyze a name. It's very interesting. Whether it's a Rashi in Chumash, or sometimes something's in Gemara. Very often when he talks about a parsha, the name of the parsha, if it's a special Shabbos, he would talk about the name of the, based on the fact that it says in Chassidus that the name gives life to everything. The story with Adam Rishon that Hashem asked him to give the names to all the animals, and it means he understood that these names, that's the source of life for each animal and everything in creation. Yep.
Which Rebbe?
Which Rebbe says this? Our Rebbe.
No, which Rebbe analyzes the names?
Our Rebbe. Yeah. So here too, the Rebbe goes into that. V'yesh lahosef, we can add that the connection between Beis Rabeinu ShebeBavel and redemption is also alluded in the name of the Beis Rabeinu. What does that mean? The name of our Rebbe, the Rebbe is referring to his Rebbe, are both names allude to Geula. His first name is Yosef, and there's a pasuk by Yoimahu, Yosef Hashem Sheinis Yodei, Liknes Ashar Amay Asher Yishar Me'ashel Mitzrayim U'Miyayim. V'asap Nitche Yisrael and puts as Yehuda Yikabit Marba Kamasaris. In English, on that day, Hashem will once again, and the Hebrew word for that is Yosef. He will add once again, show his hand, and he'll gather the remnants of his people. And the word "gather," if you notice in the Hebrew, it's also it's written with darker letters, well, asaf, because that's also the word Yosef. Comes from the word to gather. Gather all the remaining Yidden from Assyria and from Egypt and from the islands and from the sea, all the dispersed of Israel, and he will assemble them and assemble them from the four corners of the earth back to Eretz Yisrael. So that name Yosef, it relates to Geula. Shmoi Hasheni, by the way, we find this in Gemara, when the Gemara has this discussion about Mashiach, and the Gemara says that his name is Shilai. The Gemara brings a pasuk where it says that Shilai, at Kiyave Shilai, there's a pasuk that alludes to Shilai as Mashiach. When the Gemara says his name might be Chanina, the Gemara brings another pasuk. When the Gemara says his name would be this, every name that's given, the Gemara looks for a pasuk that it's associated with. So the Rebbe is also giving a pasuk that's connected to the Frierdiker Rebbe. Shmoi Hasheni, and his second name is also connected to Mashiach. Why? The second name is Yitzchak. And what is the name Yitzchak? Al Shem HaTzchok v'Hasimcha. This is the joy and the laughter that Geula, Amitzvah Shleimus from Mashiach Tzidkenu will bring. Where do we associate Mashiach's coming with joy and laughter? Meshikosav, as it says, Oz Yemoli Tzchok Pinu. Then our mouths will be filled with laughter. And the Gemara says, Oz Daika. Then, the Rebbe doesn't bring the rest of the Gemara, but the Gemara says, and they do have it in the notes, note number 125, that it says that in the era of exile, one is not allowed to fill his mouth with laughter. Why not? Because it says us, only then, which means the person today would be laughing like wholeheartedly without any any restraint, that means that he doesn't care about the fact that the Beis is destroyed. So therefore, us only then will be. So it means that we're associating laughter and joy with Mashiach. And that's why it says they'll say to Yitzchak, "You are our father." In other words, we have three of us: Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. I think from other things you've learned before, Abraham is Chesed, Yitzchak is Gevura, and Yaakov is Tiferes. So he's like in the middle. But the Gemara says when Mashiach will come, Abraham will be on one side, Yaakov will be on the other side, and Yitzchak will be in the middle. And we'll say to Yitzchak, "You're our father." Like in the time of Gula, he'll be the primary of the three fathers. So on the surface, it's a little bit strange. Why would I say that Yitzchak is the main one? In fact, I would think Abraham should be the main one. Why Abraham? Because Abraham is Chesed and Yitzchak is Gevura. And when Mashiach comes, it'll be a time of Chesed. Everything will be revealed and open and not Gevura. So why are we associating redemption to Yitzchak? So the answer is that the real Yitzchak, which means laughter, like this, the parsha we just had, when Yitzchak was born, how everybody was, Sarah was laughing, and Avram was laughing, and everyone was laughing that a woman at 90 years old gives birth. So spiritually, it means the real laughter that Hashem has, the real joy Hashem has, is from Yitzchak. Why is that? The difference between Chesed and Gevura is in terms of serving Hashem. Chesed means something which is light and open kindness and open goodness. And Yitzchak, which is Gevura, means you're taking something which is hidden, something which is concealed, and not openly godliness, and you're transforming it and making it into something godly. And that's what gives Hashem the greatest pleasure, and that's what gives Hashem joy and laughter. And the Mezritch Maggid gives a mashal. So now we know whenever you see a mashal from a big tzaddik, there's much more to the mashal than appears on the surface. But the mashal is of a person that he committed something against the king, and he was taken to trial. And they found him guilty. And as a result of that, there was a verdict. But the rule was, apparently in all kingdoms, that before they carry out the verdict, he has an opportunity, they give him an opportunity to say whatever is the last thing he wants to say. So he said, yes, he wants to take that opportunity, and they should give him a few days. Comes back a few days later, but he comes back with a bird on his shoulders, a parakeet. And the bird starts speaking, "Your Majesty." And the bird gives this speech, very eloquent speech, like the most, the most diplomatic person who knows how to speak to a king, speaks to the king about how great he is and how amazing he is, and how much he has grace and he has compassion and all these kind of things, explains why he's defending himself. And the king is laughing all the way through because you're looking at a bird, but it's talking as if this would be some really eloquent speaker. And after he finished, the king just waves his hand and says, "Okay, you're pardoned." So Mezritch Maggid said, the reason why he was pardoned, because this made him laugh and made him light. Had this speech been given by a person, not by a bird, nothing would have happened. It's because of the novelty that a bird should speak this way, that's what made him laugh. I once heard somebody, it was not a chassid, somebody said, what is the definition of a joke? The definition of a joke is that you say something, and the last line is something which you totally didn't expect to happen, or to be said. In other words, it's the newness in it, the unexpectedness. And that's the same thing here. That the biggest joy that Hashem gets is not from what the angels are doing, but what the birds are doing. We down here, Kashmir's the good people, with the Yetzer Hara, and then we do Torah, we do mitzvah, and all these things. This gives Hashem the greatest pleasure. And therefore, when Mashiach comes, the real joy, the real laughter will come, because then it'll be revealed, all the things in the world will transform. And this Aveda is more Yitzchak's Aveda. the transforming of the concealment, and not Avram. So we see the relationship between that, both names of the Frierdiker Rebbe, and redemption. Beis Rabeinu, the number is Sheva Meyers B'Shivim, 770. And Hashem Mispah Zeh Nikba Shmoi, Asher Yikra Beis Rabeinu, Fi Kol Yisrael. That's how people refer to it as 770. In fact, it's not even 770 Eastern Parkway, it's just 770. I used to, what? I used to live on Empire Boulevard. My mother was once walking down Empire Boulevard, and this woman, an African-American woman, walks over and says, "Where's 770?" And I guess her reaction was like, "Why do you want to go to 770? What you mean? Where's 770 Empire Boulevard?" You know, she was looking for 770 Empire Boulevard, and there's 770 on every street in the country. But when a person says 770, oh, it means you're going to 770. This became the name of the Rebbe Shul. So there must be something significant about this number, 770. And we know again that numbers are very significant in Torah. So Mispar Zeh, this number 770 is Bigamatria Paratzta. We did this, we didn't do this.
We did.
We did? That's why it sounds familiar to me. So we weren't on page 49, we were further down. Okay, so we'll just continue. Is Bigamatria Paratzta. Right, I showed you that page where it says Paratzta in reference to the two children that were born. So Paratzta comes to the pasuk of Paratzta Yom of Akedmat Safina Benegba. Shereimans, that alludes to the fact that this is a house, that from this house, light goes out to the whole world, and light goes out in a way it preaches together, it breaks through barriers, that all four directions in the world are elevated and they become like Eretz Yisrael, like it says, Asida Eretz Yisrael shenispashet b'chol ha'aretzos. In the future, all of Eretz Yisrael will spread out to all the countries in the world, especially the shuls and the yeshivas. Okay, so now we'll go to page 50, 51. And all these shuls and yeshivas from Chutzlars will go to Eretz Yisrael and will be connected to the Beis Hamikdash. The Gula Mitzvah Shlema de Mashiach Tzedkeinu. In reference to Mashiach, it also says Paratzta Alecha Paretz. So I showed you in that sheet that Mashiach is a descendant of Yehuda, but which son of Yehuda? The one that's called Peretz. And why was it called Peretz? Because two babies were born, they were twins, and the other baby was supposed to come out first, and this baby pushed ahead. You know, he went out of lines. What? Page 50, 51. So Chazal say that when they said these words to him, why did you, again, the words in the Chumash is, why did you burst forth? Why did you run ahead, sort of out of line? The Gemara says, Zeh Mashiach. This is alluding to Mashiach, because in reference to Mashiach, it also says, Allah ha-perdis l'fneihem. And the one who breaks forth, he went before them. And it's referring to Mashiach. I think this is where we left off. We can connect these two things. Number one, the gematria of 770, and also the first name of the Frierdiker Rebbe, which is Yosef, that Hashem will once again stretch out his arm and bring all the Yidden back to Eretz Yisrael. So the Rebbe says, HaMispar Shva Me'ez V'Shivim, the number 770 reflects the number 7 in most complete form. Each one includes 10, and that's 70. In other words, again, we know that according to Chassidus, numbers represent and they're connected to the spheres. So what is the number 70? We know number 7, but what's 70? So the answer is, this is something very similar to what we have when we count the Omer. When we count the Omer, it's 49 days. But how many spheres are there? Only 7. That's why it's 7 weeks. So if it's 7 weeks, why do we also count that 49 days? Because each sphera includes the others. So there's chesed, and then there's chesed shebechesed, gevura in chesed, teferes in chesed. That's a chod yesod malchus in chesed. So if you have 7 spheres and each one consists of the other 7, altogether it's 49. Another way of looking at it, if you have 7 spheres and each one has all 10 in it, then you have 70. So it means that the number 70 represents the 7 spheres, but as they all include all other 10 spheres in it. Which means the 7 spheres in a more complete way. But you say to him as that, Kol echad kol mimeya. So then where does the number 100 come from? Like the 700? Because each one of the 10 includes in it 10. So 10 times 10 is 100. And you do this 7 times, so it's 770. Is that complicated math? Yeah.
You say, like, it includes in it, what do you mean?
What we mean is that every sphere has in it all the other spheres. And the time that we learn about this more details actually when it comes to Spheres HaOmer, that's when we go into it a little bit more. But what it means is, of course, if we say the whole world comes from Hashem's 10 spheres, how does it make sense that there's 10 spheres, but there's trillions and trillions of different kind of species and objects in the world? So the answer is because each sphere has many details to it. It's like a person. How many people are in the room? There are 10 people. But every person has X amount of organs in their body. Okay, so there are 248 organs times 10. So then there are 200, well, how much would it be? 2,400 organs in it. Okay, that's organs. What about cells? Oops. If it's cells, then the number is much bigger. What about DNA? Oh, DNA, the number is much bigger. What we're saying is there's only 7 spheres, Chesed, Gvura, Teferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchus, but each one has in it details, and those details are the other 7 or the other 10. And it could really go on further and further. For example, when we say there are 600,000 Jews, that's where that number also comes from. I know you're thinking, why 6 now? Why not 700,000? And the answer is because everything depends on what context you're using it. Sometimes when we talk about the spheres, we say 6. Sometimes we say 7. Sometimes we say 10. Because it depends. It's very hard to understand it unless we understand the concepts of Chassidus to know what applies where. But sometimes, like when we talk about about our week, there are 6 days in the week. Man, what if there are 7? No, the 7th day is a different category. That's Shabbos. But weekdays is only 6. So you see here itself, there's 6 days and there's a 7th day. The same is with the spheres. There are 6 spheres and there's a 7th sphere. So some issues, in context of some issues, we go about all 7 together. In some areas, we separate it. So for example, if someone would ask, how many sets are there? How many volumes are there in the Mishnah? Mishnayos.
7.
6. Oh, okay, so everything should be 6. How many Chumashim are there?
5.
5. So the answer is it depends in what context the inyan is of a Chumash, that needs to be 5. Mishnah needs to be 7. 6, rather. Gemara is actually 60. That's what the word Shas means. There are 60 tractates. So 60 and 6, we can see the connection. And therefore, when there's a number like 700 or a number like 70, it's all the same. It's 7, but each one includes 10, so you have 70. And if each one of the 70 includes 10, you have 700.
Yeah.
Of course, we need to learn other places in Chassidus that explain the difference, but it generally means that we're going into more details rather than just being more general. Now the Rebbe explains what's significant about the number 7. Mispar Sheva, the number 7, kosher mitzias olam. It reflects and it's connected to the world as we know it. Because the world was created in 7 days. See here, we use the number 7. It's called Shivas Yimei Habinyan. It means the 7 days of building. These are the 7 days where Hashem constructed the universe. And this corresponds to the 7 midas, starting from Chesed and finishing with Malchus. In fact, it says that whatever was created each day corresponds to and is consistent with that sphere. The first day was light, that corresponds to Chesed. The second day, Hashem made the heaven that separates up the water from up there and down here. That's Gevurah, separation. The third day, something every day, whatever was created is a reflection of and a manifestation of that Sphira. So these are 7 days. And that's why it's also connected with Birur Ha'olam, elevating the world through the Avodah of Yidden. And the world, and Yidden are also divided into 7 categories. Where do we find the Yidden divided into 7 categories? There are actually 12 tribes. Where do we find them divided in 7 categories? Is 7 madregas ba'avedas Hashem. There's 7 ways of serving Hashem, and this is represented by the 7 branches of the menorah. We know that the menorah is used sometimes to represent the Jewish nation. There's a famous prophecy that was given to Zechariah. In fact, we read it on Hanukkah, that prophecy. And what it is, Hashem showed him a menorah and gave over a prophetic message. But it says in the Navi, what does the menorah represent? Bnei Yisrael. So why 7? Because the Yidden are, the simple reason is we come from 7.
I'm sorry, what was that story you said, Zechariah?
Zechariah had a prophetic vision. We know when the Nevi'im got a prophecy, they usually were given a picture of something. It was an image. Like Yaakov saw a ladder, that's an image. And they also saw the interpretation of the image. So the image he saw was an image of a menorah with 7 branches. And then he was given a prophecy that interpreted the image. And the interpretation was that the image of a menorah that has 7 branches represent the Jewish people. On the Pshat level, it means that the Jewish people come from 7 ancestors. Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. So we come from 7. But what does it mean also spiritually that there are 7 paths of how to serve Hashem? Some people serve Hashem mainly through Chesed. Some people serve Hashem mainly through Gevurah. Some people serve Hashem mainly through Tiferes and so on. And like the example is given, it's related to this week's Parshas. There's a pasuk in Tanakh where Hashem says, Avram, the one that loved me. And then when Hashem talks about Yitzchak, it says, I am the God that Yitzchak feared me. Wait a second, Yitzchak didn't love Hashem? And Avram didn't fear Hashem? So it means that Avram had love and fear, Yitzchak had love and fear, but Avram Avinu's main attribute to which he served Hashem was love for Hashem. And Yitzchak's main attribute to which he served Hashem was fear. And Yaakov's main attribute that he served Hashem was Tiferes. And so altogether there are 7 paths how to serve Hashem. And that's connected to the fact that the world was created in 7 days because the world corresponds to 7 midos. And that's why our serving Hashem is also on 7 paths. And that's why there's so many things in Yiddishkeit that are connected to the number 7. So when a man puts on tefillin, he wraps the tefillin around his arm 7 times. On Simchas Torah, we circle the Biblia 7 times. When we do Hakafas and Hoshana Rabbah with the Lulav and the Esrog, we circle it 7 times. When a Chassan and Kala get married, the Kala and the families circle the Chassan 7 times. All those things that you find in Torah and in Halacha, that you need 7, the sabbatical year is a cycle of 7 years. It all corresponds to this idea that there are 7 spiritual aspects, and everything corresponds to that. So that means that the shleimus, the mispar sheva meis v'shivim, that when there's a number that's complete, not just 7, which is very general, but you go into the details, means that our Avodah is completed, not only general, but also the details. That means the Avodah of the Yidden, of elevating the world and refining the world throughout Golus comes to a completion. And then we go out of Golus and we go back to Eretz Yisrael. So I guess 770 means the completion of refining everything in the world. And the reason why this is called completion is like somebody says, I bought a new house. Did you move in already? No, not yet. Why not? Well, I don't have any table and chairs. Okay. I Baruch Hashem have tables and chairs. Did you move in already? No, I didn't get any beds. Oh, okay. Baruch Hashem, we got beds. Did you move in already? No, I don't have a washing machine. I don't have this. I don't have that. In other words, when is it ready to move in? When all the details are there. When is something complete? When it's not just complete in a general way, but it's complete in the details. So same thing here. The number 770 means that the world, which is made up of 7, has been refined, transformed, prepared for Geula, but in all its details, not general. That's what the number represents. Of course, one of the things that the Sicha also writes in the Sicha, if you look at footnote, in the Hebrew it's 92, in the English it's footnote 136, that the Hebrew words, that was connecting 770 to Geula, that the Hebrew words Beis Mashiach is actually Gematria 770. That's Gematria Paratsto, same thing. Okay, so let's continue now on page 52, 53. Where's the footnote? It's on page 50, but look at the bottom where it says 136. And in the Hebrew, it's on page 51. Now, page 52, 53.
העולם נברא משבע ספירות.
Okay. We find also in the pasuk the same verse that alludes to the connection to the name Yosef and redemption also alludes to the number 7. What does it say in that pasuk? Let's look again. It says, on that day, Hashem will stretch out his hand a second time, and he will acquire the Jewish people from where? And he lists 7 countries. Ashur, Mitzrayim, Pasres, Cush, Elam, Shinar, which means it's also alluding to the number 7. It comes to indicate that the time Geula will be when all 7 aspects. By the way, there are 7 continents in the world, right? It's also 7. Also, the pasuk adds Yam, which means the islands, and that's referring to the Rebbe says Chatzi Kadar Atach, the lower part of the hemisphere. And this we explained last time, that the reason why this part of the globe is called the lower part of the globe is because the place where Hashem gave the Torah, that's the higher part of the globe. And this part of the globe is the place where Torah wasn't practiced, it's the part of the globe which is not included in those lands where the Torah was given. Torah was given Har Sinai, that's near Eretz Yisrael, near Bavel, all those other countries, Mitzrayim. But these countries, they were only discovered later in history. So these are countries which it's always very recent. And therefore, it's the lowest part of the world in terms of the fact that we didn't have the light of Torah and mitzvahs here. So when the lowest part is elevated, everything in the world is elevated. Yesh Shleimer, the Rebbe adds now another thing. Shebeshleimus the mispar shva meis v'shivim, that in this number, 770, it also alludes to the Avodah of the Frierdiker Rebbe. Because the Frierdiker Rebbe's Avodah was also completed in 7 decades. He was actually 70 years, almost 70 years, But when Yud Shvat came,
Rabbi Majeski.
yeah,
I know obviously Hashem created the entire world and there's complete like MS to anything that a Rebbe says. But can you help us help me out with someone who necessarily is oh like the Amalek part, it's like this is all just a coincidence, but kind of cools down just how cool this really is.
how can we help out someone like that? Well, it's only by learning about Hashgacha Pratis. Remember, we learned about the blades of grass, how everything is precise and planned. So, I guess if you learn Chassidus and you learn that the name of something is very much connected to its essence, so the name of something is the name of an animal is let's say tzipor, which means a bird. So we know that the Hebrew word tzipor is the Rebbe saying this is the name of this shul, and being that this is the name, it must be definitely be something that expresses its essence. So I guess the person's issue is not about 770 or the name. The person's issue is the general idea of Hashgacha Pratis, and that names of things are really significant. The Gemara tells us a story about Reb Meir. This is the same Reb Meir that he was so deep that he used to need 300 mishalim, that he would judge people by their name. He just told, when he would come someplace, he would say, "What's your name?" And whenever he said a name, now he knew what kind of person he is. In fact, the Gemara tells a story that he was traveling with the sages, and they came to an inn. And he asked the person, "What's his name?" When he said the name, he said, "No, I'm not staying in this place." And the sages said, "Come on, it's just a name." And they were slept there. Anyway, at night, he robbed them of all their money. And how did he know? Because he knew the name. Now, we can't do that. Say, "Oh, your name is Chaim? Great. Your name is this. I'm worried about you." We don't understand that. In fact, Reb Meir was someone that even the sages in his generation couldn't understand him. So he was very deep. So you really have to be on a level. But the idea, we're not on the level to understand what it is. But the idea that a name is significant and it's connected to the essence of whatever carries the name, that's the principle of Torah. Even the fact that the Arizal writes that when parents give a name to their child, every one of us in this room, we have a name that we got from our parents. That name is, the Arizal says, is like a prophecy because it's the name that's connected to my specific neshama. So whatever led me to get my name, Hashgacha Pratis, whatever it was, that means that that's connected to my neshama. So we see names are very significant once a person studies Hasidus or Kabbalah. If you might find it very commonly in Sicha, especially in Rashi's Sichas, but in other Sichas also, where the Rebbe says, "How come it's Rabbi Kiva who said this? How come it's Rabbi Lazar who said that? How come Rabbi Yeshua said this? Why is Hillel the one that said this and Shammai that said that?" And it's really fascinating to see how their personalities come out in their name. By the way, if you learn Chumash, just Chumash, when the Shvatim were born, it says, for each one, it gives a reason why they call him that name. Oh, he's this and this, so we'll call him Reuven. He's that, we'll call him Shimon.
Usually it was the reason who said that when parents name their child, they have recognized it.
Right. It's not that they turn into Nevi'im, it means it's an unconscious message that's given to them like Ruach HaKodesh, yes. And I guess anything like that, if a person chooses his own name, let's say we have sometimes students that come here that never got a Jewish name, and they choose their own name. That's the Ruach HaKodesh is going through them. I know people used to ask the Rebbe for a name. I think what's interesting also, I learned how to close here. What's also interesting is, I know girls who went to the Rebbe and they said, "Could the Rebbe give me an English name?" The Rebbe said, "What's your English name?" And the name the Rebbe gave them was a translation of their English name, which means apparently even the English name has a certain Hashgacha Pratis to it. I think remember specifically, I think the GEM videos, they have a whole section just about names, how people are asking Rebbe for names. And this woman said her name was Joy or Joyce, and Rebbe called herself Simcha. Yeah,
I need to know.
Rebbe was someone who gave her name in French, means flower, so Rebbe told him to use a Hebrew name that means flower. Yep.
If there wasn't like a good translation, didn't he also tell them to choose a name that sounded like their name?
Yes. I think there was that also. Look up in Gem to see if you can, it's interesting.
I did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
And the Rebbe told people that, I think the Rebbe told people something that sounded like their name, yeah. So the Frierdiker Rebbe is also connected to number 7 because his avodah that he did in this world was 7 decades, which means it lived to the age of 70. By the way, in this week's Parsha, one of the places where you see the significance, right? Has the Parsha begin? Vayu Chayei Sarah, Mea Shana, Esrim Shana, Sheva Shana. Rashi says each one teaches us something else. What is 100 years? What is 7 years? What is 20 years? And the numbers are very significant. In fact, I think there's a story with Rabbi Akiva, similar story like the other one, where students were not so awake when he was teaching. So he said something to perk up their attention. And he said, why was Esther a queen over 127 countries? Who knew the answer? What?
Sarah Meredith.
Right, because she was a descendant of Sarah, and Sarah lived 127. So what do you mean? It means she did her Avodah, and she completed something which is connected to the number 127. So therefore, her descendant was Zeicha to be a queen of 127 countries. On the surface, okay, 27. But it means spiritually, she accomplished something which is related to the number 127. And when it manifested down here was that this Jewish woman, who was a tzaddikus, ruled over 127 countries. So we see how numbers, especially the Rebbe says, for example, 70 years, that it is significant. It means he completed his avodah in 7 decades. And that is really the idea that the world is made up of 7, and in his generation, we completed the avodah of Golus, which is related and connected to the number 7. Okay, I think next time we'll just start from the Yesh Lemer again, from this last paragraph, because we don't have time to finish. To be continued. Okay. Yeah.